Welcome to episode 2 of our remote management Q&A series, where we will be interviewing business leaders and our very own management team to learn about their experience, strategies, and successes in leading a team remotely. Today we'll be taking a step outside of Versature and learning about remote work policies. Hundreds of businesses whose employees had never previously worked from home are now operating completely remotely. This huge shift in dynamic within a short time frame has forced teams to learn and adapt on the fly. Over the past few weeks, organizations across Canada rushed to put new tools in place to keep their employees connected and engaged, but in ways that also allow them to keep working at full capacity. It's my pleasure to introduce Nancy Carter. Nancy is the Chief Financial Officer of CANARIE here in Ottawa. CANARIE manages and develops digital research infrastructure for Canada's research, education, and innovation communities. Nancy authored CANARIE's work from home policy, giving their organization guidelines around how to successfully work from home. Nancy, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for the invitation, Ziad.
To start off, I was hoping you could give a little bit of background really about what CANARIE does and what your role is within the organization.
Sure. Since 1993, CANARIE's been supporting the development of Canada's digital economy. The thing we're best known for is operating and managing the Canadian portion of the Global Research and Education Network that connects researchers and educators around the world to each other, to major science instruments, and to cloud services. This global network also brings together scientists from around the world to work on global challenges for humanity, like the one we're currently experiencing with the COVID-19 pandemic. The network also supports research on things like climate change and chronic health issues like Alzheimer's, clean water, genomics, and so on. As the Chief Financial Officer, I get to oversee the finances of the organization. I look after things like financial integrity, reliability of financial results, and also CANARIE's governance, legal, human resources, IT, facilities, compliance, all the fun things.
That does sound like all the fun things. So I would imagine that with your role as part of human resources and governance, this is what sort of made you the perfect candidate to write the work from home policy.
Correct.
So I guess I'll jump right in. So there were plenty of companies who were not prepared with a work from home policy and whose employees had never really worked from home before. What was the situation with your team at the time, and how has your team adapted to working in a completely remote environment?
So oddly enough, it started about 2 years ago when we had to close our downtown office as a result of a flood that was caused by a fire sprinkler system on the floor right above us. So we were forced to work from home for a week, completely unexpectedly. The technology toolkit we had at the time got us through that situation. But since then, we've continued to augment our technology and our toolkit to support remote work. In fact, about a year ago, management initiated what we call Work from Home Wednesday. And that happens every second Wednesday. All staff are encouraged to work from home. So making the change to completely remote had some challenges, but certainly all of our staff are already capable of working remotely because we've practiced that before. However, really not for quite as long as what we're experiencing right now.
So, what was the gamut of things that you had to consider in a creation of a document like this? What sort of things were there? Was there anything that popped up after it was written that needed to be included?
So we learned a lot about the tools we needed for remote work after the flood 2 years ago, but we knew the approach to working from home periodically didn't scale to an extended period of time, such as the one we're currently experiencing. So there's a number of things that we did to close that gap. We knew that staff needed something to help them prepare for a longer period of working from home, which is why I developed the code of practice that you mentioned. Some other things that we scheduled right away to maintain momentum include weekly social video conferencing with all staff. So we have a big all staff on Friday afternoon. Originally, I called that virtual beer club, but then the kids started showing up, and so we had to change that to not a beer club. We have daily virtual team stand-up meetings, just as if we were in the office. And our president sends a daily email update to all staff just to make sure that everybody's feeling connected.
So does that sort of help with a bit of the uncertainty that your team might be feeling?
That's what we're hoping, yep. And we get a sense of that in some of the correspondence that we get back and forth from the staff.
So are you able to give us some of the specifics within the policy that you made for working for such a prolonged period, or was it primarily just adding those additional touch points?
It was additional touch points. So we wanted to maintain a feeling with staff that we're still connected on a day-to-day basis. We knew that would be challenging because we all miss daily interactions that happen in any office, like ad hoc meetings or chatting at the coffee machine or chatting at the elevator. So in the current situation, the approach to social distancing also meant that we had to check in on staff to help them keep from feeling isolated from the world. And we've come up with other challenges that we've over time that we know we need to add into this work from home code of practice. So are staff able to work and homeschool at the same time? Do they need to stagger their hours to manage childcare? Are we able to support our staff fully? How can we help with the unique issues or challenges that each of our staff are experiencing? Mental and emotional health are a priority for us and helping staff with that. But there's no one size fits all. And so we deal with all these things on a kind of case by case basis. But definitely version 2 of our work from home code of practice will be a bit more fulsome.
So given that everything seems uncertain and, that you guys are constantly learning and sort of expanding your work from home code of practice, with a lot of managers and business owners really taking this kind of day by day, figuring it out as they go along, if you could give 2 pieces of advice to business owners on how to effectively manage a team remotely, what would they be?
I would say to look at the situation from the perspective of your staff as a whole, and then from the perspective of each individual. That would be the first piece of advice I would give. So each of our staff members' home situations and the work they need to do is different. And making sure that you can support all of them with the work at home code of practice, for example, is important, but also working with each of the staff individually to make sure that our work from home expectations can be aligned with their home situation. Do they need to borrow one of our spare laptops for homeschooling, for instance? Is it better for them if they work evenings? The second piece of advice I would say is to invest in the tools needed to be totally paperless and build the communications technology and approach that you need to allow people to work remotely. That protects you during times of disaster recovery and in times such as this. But it will also help streamline the operations of your business. We were already paperless for most things, but during the past 4 weeks, we've become even more so. For instance, I have not signed one check in the last 4 weeks, as all our payments are now done online. That was a necessity. I have 2 other small pieces of advice yet. So I would say you need to provide guidance and training to staff on things like how to keep their home network secure, because if that fails, they can't work. So we've been supporting our staff from a cybersecurity perspective with their home setup. And finally, I want to say that strong leadership, especially at the top, is super important. All of our staff know that the president is supporting them and that they can go to him for any advice, support, or guidance. And this has been pivotal in our staff transitioning to working from home successfully.
Well, that is all great advice. Thank you so much, Nancy. And thank you for joining me for our remote management Q&A series. I appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise. And thank you to all the listeners for tuning in. For more tips and tricks on how to effectively work from home, listen to the previous episode where we dive into SDR remote management. It's available on the Versature Conversation blog. Have a great day.